I want to talk about some fake news. Now, this is not the kind of fake news that's going to get a whole lot of attention because I am a minority report on this subject. But the fake news is that Gen Z is 100% fake news. It's not a real generation. It just needs to be ixnayed, dumped in the trash, sent to the incinerator, etc. Now I know that you can go online, you can find a Wikipedia page, you can find hundreds, many hundreds, thousands of white papers and studies and reports by various and sundry marketing firms that are telling you all about Gen Z, and they're going to have statistics and data and findings and all this kind of stuff. And the Wall Street Journal and big publications will talk about them. But they're not a generation. What Gen Z is they are the latter third of the Millennials, born 1982 to 2004. And they're the children of Gen Xers. They're still Millennials, but they are solidly the children of Gen Xers, whereas the first half of Millennials are mostly the children of Boomers. It's another story for another day. But there's nothing, so Gen Z's birth years are given as starting at around 1996. That would put them at the top end now at 24. There's nothing that happened in 1996, plus or minus a couple years, that created a new world for them to live into that world. You could say that the Twin Towers, September 11th attacks did, but it changed things, but it didn't radically change the world. Yeah, we had to take our shoes off at airports, but it didn't change the culture that much. But you could definitely say that this COVID-19 event has changed the culture very much. And actually, the shift started in 2008 with the housing crisis, and a generation is usually born about 2 or 3, sometimes 4 years before the big culture shift that changes the mood in the nation. And I think it's pretty obvious that, the children born in 2005 and afterward, that makes them 15 and at the top end this year, will have a very different experience growing up than the children born prior. And because, again, a generation's worldview is formed in its childhood and coming of age years, it's pretty clear that this is the generation. Now, why is this important, right? I mean, you could just be like, oh, there's Jessie talking about generations again, yada, yada. She just won't shut up. And that has been said about me before. But it's important because when you have the wrong information, you make the wrong conclusions. And if there's ever a generation that's really going to need support for being who they need to be, I mean, look at this generation. The whole playbook for kids is being rewritten in this event. And to understand them and to understand their archetype and understand their natural inclinations and personality, their archetype's personality would be very helpful, as we're having to design more learning from home or, different policies around children and childcare and playgrounds and all kinds of things. And it's important. I don't just say this to squawk about generations. I say this because if you have the wrong information about a generation and you're just listening to marketers, and by the way, the Pew Charitable Trust does not create generations. Marketing firms do not create generations. Generations are created by life conditions and by the outer events, and there's also other factors at play with which generation's in midlife, and there's social and biological roles for different generations and different social roles and different ages and all. Whole nother subject. But overall, I just want to say, let's stop promulgating the myth about Gen Z. Just let that one go. And instead, really start turning our attention to the homeland generation, to this archetype, to the artist archetype. Learn about them. Neil Howe has a number of articles about them. And, the information's in the books. I'll be producing more videos on this subject. And they deserve our attention. Every generation has a different childhood. They grew up in a different era. Every generation grows up in a different era. That's what makes them a different generation. Again, it's not the years that someone arbitrarily picked out of who knows where and called it a generation. It's the life experiences. It's what's happening, what forms and shapes their childhood in a completely different cultural mood. So that's it, folks. Ixnay on the Gen Z. Embrace the homeland art generation, the artist archetype. Again, their birth years are 2005 to 2027-ish. That's all TBD. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.